very good afternoon to you and welcome to Opinion 2017. It's one day after mass protests that were called for by the NASA leadership to protest against the new set of laws presented to Parliament or passed through Parliament by Jubilee and expected to be assented to law by Uhuru Kenyatta. I mean, running battles across the country. Mass protests are witnessed in Kisumu, Mombasa, Homa Bay, Kakamega, Vihiga, Nairobi, Garissa, Embu. And today I'm joined in studio by a very accomplished lawyer. Shall I call him man of law? Because the people of gospel call themselves men of God. This is one man whose popularity currently around the country is at an all-time high. Senior counsel, member of parliament for Arieda, and former ombudsman, Honorable Dr. Otiende Amolo. Mheshimiwa.
Thank you.
Karibu sana.
Thank you very much.
You did mention that there's a specific legal word for I just used a layman's word saying former ombudsman.
Ombudsman emeritus.
Ombudsman emeritus.
Yes, anyone who retires honorable.
Yes.
As ombudsman.
Yes.
Is called ombudsman emeritus.
Anyone who retires honorably.
Yes.
Okay, I now know two legal words. There is a ombudsman emeritus,
yes.
and amicus
Curiae.
Very well. It's also a day that the University of Nairobi has been shut down indefinitely. I'm joined by the SONU Secretary General Apio. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Mheshimiwa, thank you for accepting to join us. When you're coming here, a lot of our studio staff were asking for selfies. I'm just surprised all these days no one has asked for a selfie from me. Now, there's concern that Kenya could be sliding towards a banana republic. Yesterday was supposed to be a day when Kenyans are having peaceful demonstrations to express themselves. We also saw scenes in Nairobi University where police officers brutalized and actually demeaned our best brains at actually the University of Nairobi. Before we delve into this discussion, let's just have a look at, there's a group that is calling themselves business community. And they appear to be a law unto themselves. They're even giving ultimatums. They gave an ultimatum to the NASA leader and dared him to step into the CBD yesterday for the protest, and they will teach him a lesson. There was also the incident where you were harassed while you are attending to one of your clients, and that begs the question, are we sliding to a banana republic? Let's just have a look at this first clip of the businessmen.
It has come to our attention that the political climate of our country is heated and is headed to the wrong direction. We as Gema and Nairobi business community have in the past bared the wrath of demonstrations and subsequent violence that have resulted to wanton destruction, loss of property, and even loss of lives in Nairobi. On 8th of August 2017, Kenyans went to the polls and exercised their democratic rights to vote for their chosen leaders. It is imperative to note that IEBC conducted 6 elections which were fair, credible, and transparent to the satisfaction of local and international observers. Though NASA went to petition the presidential results, all others were upheld only with a few petitions at the lower courts by persons who were unsatisfied by the outcome.
Well, there you go. I mean, I don't know what to make of this. Are these really businessmen? Are these... Because I'm not saying that having dreadlocks disqualifies you from being a businessman, but Mheshimiwa, are we sliding back to the dark days?
The answer is an unequivocal yes. Sadly, I think all the gains we have made in the last 20 years all the gains captured in the Constitution 2010 are being undermined. And there are various indicators. One, that group that calls itself the Nairobi Business Community is clearly a grouping of Mungikis. It is a grouping that has lawfully been described as an illegal organization. And past governments have treated it as such and tried to eradicate it. It is clear that the government currently is trying to embrace it and use it for illicit purposes. The world over, when governments want to do things that are illegal, sometimes they don't use the police. They use other vigilantes and other groupings such as that.
Mercenaries.
Yes. It is clear that that grouping is a grouping that has been allowed to flourish to counter the NASA demonstrations. And to hear the IG of police saying that he does not know because he does not know how businessmen look like. Well, maybe he does not know how businessmen look like, but at least he knows how Mungikis look like. And those are clearly Mungikis. Secondly, when you're in a country where the government tries to circumvent court orders, where the government tries to do everything within its powers not to obey a court order, as this government is doing in respect of the Supreme Court, you know you are going bananas. Thirdly, a country that is well governed democratically looks after its past leaders. It looks after its present leaders. It tries to make sure none of them is in harm's way. What this government has done through the Inspector General in withdrawing the security of past vice presidents, past prime ministers, and a current candidate and a running mate, when there are only two candidates, is indicative that it is not trying to protect them. It is not trying to ensure security. It is trying to undermine that security. And also, lastly, the police in this country are expected to be independent. They are expected to be a service, not a force. And one of the things the Constitution is very clear on Article 49 is if you are suspected to have committed any crime, there are very clear procedures. The police must come to you and introduce themselves by name and force number. They must tell you you are a suspect
name and force
number. They must tell you it is suspected you may have committed this crime. And after investigation, we believe that you may have committed it, and therefore we wish to arrest you. They tell you the crime for which you are being arrested. They must disclose to anybody with whom you are and to you which station they are taking you to. And once they take you to that station, you are entitled to police bond. In this country, the police are not shy, even in live camera, to abduct you. You saw what happened to the Honorable Babu Owino.
And
right after the court had ordered his release, the police virtually abducted him. That is not what happens in any democracy.
In any civilized country, for that matter. Vicari Omwando, you're saying the occurrences of Nairobi is just but a tip of an iceberg of the kind of morass and the pollution of water surface from where the society ought to drink. Kenyans must stop this. Moody Omi, watching from Delta State in Nigeria. I'm a Kenyan and I understand what Raila stands for. I'm in NASA to stay. Very well. Thank you. Bonnie Jean Smith, author, keep the masses divided and they will always need a master. University of Nairobi. Shut down indefinitely. I mean, is this the fourth time this is happening?
No, I think this is the sixth time the University of Nairobi is closing in a span of 2 years.
In a span of 2 years?
Quite unfortunate.
So, I mean, when do you learn? When does learning take place?
We learn when there is time.
If you close 6 times in 2 years.
I think we've never had a successful semester since this current Vice-Chancellor took over from the former Vice-Chancellor, Professor Magoa. There is no successful semester the University of Nairobi we've ever had.
But tell us, what really happened? I mean, I watched the Vice-Chancellor say that there were crooks who came to the criminals who came to the university. He admitted that it's the university administration that asked the police to come in. We're hearing reports about NYS now being in the university. What really transpired?
Last week on Thursday, when Honorable Babu Owino
Right.
The Embakasi's member of parliament was arrested because he was our former boss and
Yes.
he's still the patron of Kenya University's student organization.
Oh, there is such a position as
There's
a
also
patron.
Yeah, he's the patron.
I know Gor Mahia has a patron. I didn't know student organizations
We
have
also
a
have
patron.
a patron.
Okay.
So is the patron as we speak.
Yes.
So when he was arrested, students felt like this is our leader. This is our man. He has been fighting for our rights. Let us go picket peacefully for him to be released. When students came out along Lower State House Road, Uhuru Highway,
Yes.
police was already there in the morning. As early as 8, they were already there. They tried pushing students to go back to the halls of residences. Some of them went back. All of a sudden, we saw police officers getting into the university, into the halls of residences. And we asked them one question. Do you think someone can picket or can demonstrate in his room? Even some students were not even demonstrating. They were just in the room waiting of the outcome of the picketing. The majority were demonstrating. So they decided that because students have been demonstrating and we feel like when we are chasing them, probably they can go back to the halls of residence where they're supposed to be
Anyway,
by law, according to what they decided to come in. Then they start clobbering students.
Is it true that some lecturers were victims of this brutality as well? 3
lecturers. At College of Architecture and Engineering, we had 3 lecturers that were clobbered alongside other students who were in class. In fact, there was no demonstrations that were happening at ADD, College of Architecture and Engineering. But all of a sudden, police officers were there to harass students, to harass staff, and people who were around there.
What is the exact role of NYS in all this?
NYS was incorporated by the university administration to safeguard students. According to them, they say that it's a politics time or electioneering period. Therefore, for that case, we need to have a backup of security, which, according to us, or according to the student leader, was not seeing the need. Instead, they were even making life difficult for students there.
Well, I mean, it appears like they're there for intimidatory purposes, so to speak. I've been to Kampala severally, and one of the things you see in a very pronounced fashion is the presence of police.
Definitely.
Everywhere and anywhere. Winnie watching, thank you for watching. Anthony Molari watching, my friend Otiende. I love this guy. Do you know Anthony Molari? Well, I mean, like I said, you're grossly popular at the moment. Kombo Omar following from Canada. Thank you. Mheshimiwa, back to your client and colleague now, Babu Owino. Let's just have that clip where Mheshimiwa Otiende Amolo being arrested.
What is the problem? No. What are you doing? What is happening? What are you doing? What is it? I don't care. But explain to me. I'm the advocate. Explain to me. I'm the advocate.
Well, there you have it. Let me just do some quick comments. Beryl Loma Tabu. UoN is now closed. Sad. Yes, it is. And it's very sad. Bwire Phil following from Uganda. Mungiki in police uniform. Where is Kenya heading? Long live NASA. Mheshimiwa, I mean, what transpired there? You know, when I look at your accolades, you are former ombudsman. I'm still trying to wrap my tongue around the proper word that you introduced to me. You're a doctor, honorable member of parliament, senior counsel. You're not just some third-rate citizen walking out there. Somebody ought to notice that and treat you with dignity. Over and above, you're there to represent your client.
Yeah, absolutely. What happened on that day, and it doesn't worry me for my sake.
Right.
It worries me for the sake of the rest of Kenyans.
Right.
That if in the glare of the cameras,
yes,
if in the presence of somebody like me and Babu Wino, who's an MP,
yes,
if within the precincts of the court,
yes,
something like that can happen,
yes,
then what is it that happens out there? It is very worrying that you can be in a situation as we were in, where the court has ordered release of a person.
yes,
Once you are granted bail, in legal terms, it means you have been released to your freedom. The law requires that you actually be released.
because it's an order.
Yes, you must be released from wherever you are confined. Even if you are to be rearrested for any offense, you must enjoy your freedom momentarily.
Yes,
In this case, the police have other ideas. Their idea is that they bring you to court as a babu,
yes,
obviously as a form of punishment. You must remember that for some reason they had kept him for at least 24 hours before they brought him to court. Usually, you'd be entitled to police bond.
yes,
They didn't grant him that. Once they brought him to court, for some very strange reason, they opposed his bail. They've never opposed bail for all the other people who are accused of all sorts of hate speech.
yes.
We argued that matter for 5 hours, and the magistrate reserved a ruling for the next day, so he was now committed.
So 5 hours, you are arguing in court about a bond.
About bail,
Bail.
bond. And for all those 5 hours, you have a prosecution whose argument is based on two fundamental things. One, that they don't know where Babu lives, although they arrested him in his house.
So because they don't know, so what?
Two, that they think that if he's released, he'll take off, although he's a member of parliament. Of course, the court dismissed that, but we took 5 hours. Now, what's important is that by the next day, when the court was releasing him, he had spent 2 nights in police custody. But immediately, we got the orders for his release, and we went to the basement, and I did not suspect anything. I thought that however bad the police are, at least they would respect the court order. And you'll see in that clip, I was caught totally unawares.
Yeah, yeah, we
And
saw.
all I could ask, which I must ask, and which we must urge every Kenyan, you must insist on your rights.
Right.
The Constitution gives you the right to freedom. And if that freedom is to be curtailed, you must be told why. That's why you had me asking the police, why are you arresting him?
Yes.
Where are you taking him?
Right.
Instead of answering any single question, they brought more reinforcement.
I saw it, yeah.
What worries me, and this is the second aspect away from that particular incident,
Right.
is we are seeing a systematic militarization
Right.
of the country. There's one thing that people may not have noticed. The National Youth Service uniform was always green. You realize in recent times, they have assumed the jungle uniform of the armed forces.
Yes.
Why? It is because you are having a situation where under our constitution, there are 3 entities that are, 2 that are clearly recognized. The police, and that's both the administration police and regular police. And then, of course, the forces.
Yes.
You know, the Air Force, the Armed Forces, the Navy, and stuff like that. Each of them are clearly regulated by the constitution and the law. Formations such as the National Youth Service are not clearly regulated.
Right.
So anybody who wants to misuse a formation then brings people like the National Youth Service who can do anything. And for me, therefore, it is no wonder that you militarize them, give them jungle green, and put them everywhere when you're going to the airport, now in the universities, and then they can do anything, which then cannot be held to the constitutional standard. That should worry every Kenyan who loves democracy. And so I think that the Kenyans, as Kenyans, we should remove ourselves from this thing of thinking this is about the presidency, this is about Uhuru and Raila.
Yeah.
We should look at the telltale signs, the things that are telling us things are going from bad to worse, rather than that now I'm with Uhuru, I'm with Raila, and then you think that everything is around that. No. This is about those who love democracy and those who hate democracy. This is about those who want to take us back to where we came from, and those who want us to move forward where we are with the Constitution.
Well, I mean, scary times. Bernard Mishira, tell us something pertaining to the ruling by Justice Maraga that the first respondents should conduct fresh elections which are free, fair, credible, in strict adherence to the existing laws. Yes, we will do that in the second part of the program. Emily, may Almighty God protect us in our beloved country, Kenya. We are in trouble. How many students have died out of the latest incarceration by the police, if they are the police, so to speak?
By yesterday, there was one student who was already dead, and two are in very critical conditions at Kenyatta National Hospital. I mean,
some students were here in this studio, and they indicated to us that there could have been some rape cases. Is that also, are you aware of such?
I'm aware of that. There were rape cases. In fact, when police officers invaded the institution, the first victims or casualties were ladies, because they went directly to Hall 4 and Hall 5, where first years and second years ladies are residing. Then all of a sudden, they were inside rooms, ladies were screaming, and no one would help them out. Because at that case, if you would come across them and you're a man or you're a student, they'd arrest you or clobber you directly. I mean, so there were rape cases.
The university has blatantly denied and said, in fact, according to Biti, if I heard him correctly yesterday, it's like he's not aware. I mean, and he says there were some crooks who came, and that's why they had to. Mheshimiwa, as a lawyer, is there recourse for such victims? I mean, what should happen?
Well, first there is recourse, and I think part of it is already on. There are at least two organizations that look into such matters.
Right.
One is the Ombudsman Office, which I occupied previously,
right,
and it can look into those matters of its own motion. So I would expect that by now they've already initiated that. The other one is the Independent Police Oversight Authority. As far as I understand, they have already commenced their investigation. So one would expect and hope that they will come up with clear findings. But beyond that,
yes,
each and every student who was injured, the family of any student who lost their life are entitled to sue the police and to sue the state for that very action. Because it cannot be right for you to be attacked, clobbered, and even suffer death or rape in those circumstances.
Right.
But I think there's a fundamental issue here. It appears to me that the University of Nairobi is suffering from failure of leadership. It cannot be contemplated that you can have a situation where a university can close as many times as they are saying in the span of 1 or 2 years.
Yes.
It cannot be contemplated that you can have a vice-chancellor who the very first action they take is to call the police to deal with your own students before you try anything else.
Yes.
It is always expected that as a vice-chancellor, as a leader, the first thing you do is protect your own. You protect your lecturers, you protect your students.
Right.
The second thing is that in the event there's a problem, you yourself or your intermediaries will try to talk to the students to see if you can solve it. The third thing is, you will see if using internal mechanisms, you can assuage the students.
Right.
But any vice-chancellor who is more executive than the executive and believes that any demonstration is illegal and it should invite the police, surely does not deserve to be a vice-chancellor.
Okay, very well. We are going for a very quick break, and when we come back, we're going to have a look at the new set of laws that were passed in Bunge, the laws sponsored by Jubilee, and the implications that they have in the forthcoming elections, and whether or not those elections are going to be there in the first place. Just going for a quick break. Don't go away. Very much, and welcome back. We are still in studio with Senior Counsel and Member of Parliament for Arieda, Dr. Otiende Amolo. Now, Mheshimiwa, the recent set of laws, I mean, they were passed in a rather acrimonious fashion in Parliament. What does that mean? First of all, the number of days for publishing a bill to mature, to be presented, was reduced from 14 days to 1 day. And then the laws were passed, of course, with the absence of the NASA parliamentarians. What do these laws mean, and how can they be applied in this forthcoming second round of presidential elections?
Thank you. It's a very chaotic situation. Let me start by indicating some preliminary problems.
Yes.
Before you even come to the context. The first problem,
yes,
is that while the laws have not been passed, they're being discussed now. There's what they call public participation. However, the first problem is that the laws that they are seeking to adjust were laws that were negotiated. You remember the Kiraitu Orengo team?
Yes.
It was bipartisan, it was agreed upon, and both President Uhuru and Prime Minister Raila implored the members of parliament not to change a comma. Why?
Yes.
Because this was bipartisan and it involved agreements even outside of parliament. Now, the majority in the National Assembly, that is the Jubilee, have decided to change this unilaterally. That's the first problem. You do not unilaterally change a bipartisan agreement. Number two is, in doing so, they are trying to change the law when we are 3 weeks to the next election, if it comes, okay?
Yes.
And they are trying to change it in such a fundamental way that it is clear that if it is passed, the IEBC will not be able to conduct those elections. Certainly not as expected by the Supreme Court. Thirdly, because it's like a crisis, they fast-tracked it. Usually the bill should take about 14 days. They reduced it to half a day.
Wow.
And they reduced it well knowing that on that day in the National Assembly and the Senate, the NASA group had a parliamentary group meeting, which was scheduled earlier.
Yes.
So the leadership of Jubilee in Parliament mischievously decides to bring the order paper that brings that debate on that very day, knowing most members of Parliament will not be there. And that was the intention from NASA. Even though they say NASA did not want to participate, there was already a parliamentary group meeting. Yes. But beyond that, they bring it well knowing that the committees that should consider it first, the Legal Affairs Committee, has not been constituted. So let me now come to the mischief of it. You are in a match.
Yes.
You go through the match, maybe it's rained off, or there's a problem with the funds. The referee says there'll be a rematch. When you come for the rematch, there is no way the referee or anybody can introduce a different set of rules other than the rules that guided the first match. You cannot say, for example, that now for this match, you're allowed 13 players, not 11. You cannot do that.
You can't do it.
You cannot say the goalpost rule has now changed. You don't do that. Certainly, in an election, the Supreme Court was so clear that the IEBC did not conduct the elections in accordance with the Constitution and the law. It ordered a fresh elections with respect and compliance with the Constitution and the law that guided presidential elections as of 8 August 2017.
Right.
There is no way you can now, as Parliament, instruct IEBC to do something different from what the Supreme Court instructed them. You cannot change the law and tell Parliament now apply this other law. It cannot. But what then you do is you put the IEBC in a crisis and other courts in a crisis. How? So you've changed the law. For example, the rule by which you can invalidate an election.
Yes.
The order of the Supreme Court remains. This is what you needed to do. Parliament has changed the law. And the law now requires IEBC to follow this other route. So which route does the IEBC follow? If it follows Parliament, then the Supreme Court will certainly nullify anything it does in accordance with that. If it follows the Supreme Court, Whoever loses will challenge it, saying that you didn't follow the law. Why would you create such a crisis? Secondly,
Wow.
what are the lower courts to do? By the Constitution, Article 163, Subarticle 7,
Right.
all courts, the Court of Appeal, the High Court, Magistrates Court, are bound to apply the law as stated by the Supreme Court. So the law still is, in a material way, that you will invalidate an election if there are substantial irregularities or it did not fundamentally comply with the law. Now they are changing it to say there must be substantial irregularities, and the law now is instructing the lower court to follow a different regime from the Supreme Court. Why would anybody create such a crisis? But it does not stop there. Let me tell you only two of the worst things about that proposed amendment. There are many. The first mischief is this. You're being told that now our election is both manual and electronic.
And electronic, right.
The electronic one is for purposes of amusement, because you can transmit it, it will be shown in a public portal, but that public portal does not have to be accurate. That public portal will not be used to announce the result. And yet we've spent 2.4 billion as we speak today illegally paid to Otimofo for that public portal. Two, you have a law that says there are 7 members of the commission. There's the chair and 6 others. This law says that at any time you can have 3 members. They are allowed to decide who to be the chair among them. And that chair can perform all the functions of the chair, including declaring whoever has won the presidential election. So what will happen? You can end up with 3 commissioners who decide Uhuru Kenyatta has won. The other 4 decide Raila Amolo Odinga has won. So who will have won?
Who will have won?
It is so mischievous, it is so incompetent, it is in such bad faith that I cannot imagine. Unless Jubilee have decided that they do not want us to have elections on 26th October under any circumstances. So that rather than address the irreducible minimum that NASA had raised, they have chosen to now bring an impossible situation, and then it results in not having elections, and then perhaps, as Attorney General Gidu and the others argue, have Uhuru Kenyatta continue for an indefinite period of time.
I know. I don't know. I'm just, as a layman and as a citizen, it's so much to digest. I mean, in the middle of so much that is going on, even with the economy and all that. Phil, outer watching from Qatar, when I saw Tiende Amolo being pushed and struggling with police officer who work with the law, tears came to my eyes. I am in NASA to stay. Thank you. Now, there is talk that based on this new law, there is loophole. There's a loophole, or there is room for a judge who is not Maraga to swear in a president or Uhuru, so to speak. Is that the case?
Initially, in the Jubilee discussions, they wanted to go that way.
Right.
But I think in the drafts that have been brought to Parliament, they've shied away from that. I think they've decided to do one at a time. I think they've decided to go for the jugular of the IBC chair, and perhaps at a later date go for the jugular of the CJ. But the argument is the same. If you can argue, as the law is arguing, that any member of the commission can assume the role of the chairperson and declare a winner, then you can logically argue that any judge can assume the role of the Chief Justice and swear in the president. That is the logic of that argument. And it is very sad. The Constitution is very clear, being chair before we have the next election, and that is ominous.
Ominous. I mean, for my benefit, and many more whom I want to believe may have the same challenge as I do. What is ominous?
in these circumstances,
right.
It is scary because it would mean either one, that by some divine intervention,
yes,
they're able to predict that Chebukati will not be in a position either to be alive or to be able to perform his duties,
right,
or ominous and scary in the sense that they might intend through unlawful means,
yes,
to cause him to vacate that office. Either of those situations is terrible and scary.
The businessman can show up.
I hope not.
Yeah, I mean,
really
no,
hope not.
it is very scary and
Yes.
ominous, so to speak. There was a group of envoys who spoke yesterday. Amongst them was U.S. ambassador, and largely the group of envoys are from European countries and our other development partners. I mean, they appeared to condemn the introduction of the new laws at this stage, but they also indicated that IBC needs to be given a space to conduct the elections as ordered by the courts. They did not seem to apply pressure on particular individuals, say Chiloba and company. I mean, perhaps to exit first before, as a measure, before we go to this election. They even threatened, mentioned some actions, a set of actions they can take, say travel bans, sanctions, and other unspecified actions. What does this speak to our sovereignty first? And wouldn't it be prudent for them, for example, since companies like Mofo, Saffron actually originate from their countries, to apply pressure on the integrity of these service providers before we get to this next election?
I watched the statements by the envoys and I also read it. I was happy with it for a number of reasons.
Right.
And I'm happy with it for two.
Yes.
I was happy with it because first, the envoys have at least changed their language.
Okay.
For the longest time, they were only speaking of peaceful elections.
Yes.
Finally, they've realized that you also need fairness and credibility.
Right.
And that is a good thing.
That's a good thing, yes.
Two, they asked for people to allow the IEBC space to conduct its work, which is okay, because IEBC is a commission.
Yes.
And especially as NASA, we have never asked that IBC as an entity be evicted or anything.
Yes.
We have asked for specific individuals to be removed. So that is still okay. Thirdly, they suggested that any calls for removal of anyone should be done as by law contemplated, which is also fine,
right,
because that is exactly what we've done. But importantly, they agreed that trying to amend the laws at this stage is unwise, it is dangerous, and it will be counterproductive.
Yes.
However, they spoiled their statement by two very subtle statements there, which I think were unfortunate. One, when you are envoys in a country and you are trying to generate goodwill,
yes,
among players, you do not threaten. You do not come and say, oh, if you don't listen to us, we will deny you visas.
Yes.
We will do this. We will. You don't do that because the two don't go together. Human nature is such that if you come with a confrontation,
yes,
you will be met confrontationally.
Of course.
If you come with persuasion, the milk of human kindness in one will mellow,
yes,
and will meet you halfway.
Yes.
That was unfortunate. The second unfortunate thing is some of the envoys then started talking about their investment in Kenya. That betrays a very fundamental issue. It betrays the supposition that the envoys, or at least some of them, are more interested in getting over with this process, whether it's credible or not, as long as
yes,
their investments are secured.
Yes.
Now, that should be very worrying to them as much as to us. You cannot tell us, get on with this, because otherwise our investments are affected. That means then you do not care about the equality of the vote, about democracy. You cannot lecture us about that. Right. You must be able to tell us, we ask you to mellow down, talk, get it right fairly and peacefully. And you don't say, otherwise our investment would be affected. So I think those two things kind of
So in
affected their
this case,
statements.
what's really important is the investment.
Yes, I think that was an unfortunate statement.
Well, Evelyn Kemunto, you're saying please have the servers scrutinized. Now, Evelyn has brought up a very important issue.
Yeah.
There was an express order to have the servers opened. First, were they opened? And now that if somebody defied a court order, what should be done? I mean, Chilopa can't just sit there, fail to comply with the court order, and life moves on.
The servers were never opened.
Right.
And if we go by Jubilee's position, they would never be opened.
Right.
Because according to Jubilee, that story is gone, locked. Moving forward, we don't need servers or anything because we go manual. I think it's unfortunate. The position that we took in court and which we take up to now, a number of people have asked us, why have you not gone for contempt?
Yes.
As a legal team at the time, we thought about it and consciously decided not to go for contempt because the judges of the Supreme Court had such a limited time to make the substantive decision that if within those few days they had, and I think they only had about 3 days, you also wanted them to decide whether people should go to jail or not, it was going to confuse the whole situation.
Right.
It was our position, and it remains our position now,
Yes.
that once the dust has settled,
Yes.
we will go back to that court. You know, court orders, non-compliance with court orders don't expire. You can always go back to court at any time and call upon the person who did not comply to explain. It is our position that once we are over with all this, we will go back. We will summon Chiloba and those who work with him, wherever they will be,
Right.
to come and answer for contempt. Our worry now, secondly, is that the IEBC, with the support of the Jubilee team,
Yes.
is interfering with that evidence. When they say, for example, that the KIEMS kits are being reconfigured,
Yes.
that means everything that was there is being deleted. Now, they say that they are backing it up. You can't back up things without everybody being there. We don't know what you're backing up. You'll be backing it up selectively, and we don't know the integrity of that backup is already affected. Secondly, the question of the servers and all, and you remember there's this ultimate question. Elections are in Kenya, the operator is in France, the servers are in Spain, and they are cloud servers. One of the things we've insisted is that the servers should be in this country.
Right. And I think there was a memo by Communications Authority.
Yes.
To the same effect.
To that effect,
Yeah.
the Communication Authority was very clear that for the integrity and security of this nation,
Yes.
such information cannot be stored outside this country.
Right.
But the government, the Jubilee government and IBC wants to sweep all that under the table. So the so-called irreducible minimum of NASA is not really about NASA. It's about this country and what's good for this country.
Yes.
And that's what of law. Judges assert the right to achieve that. Then you must have sufficient
For you. What I think. Right.
But it must work. It appears that it some of us.
Very well. The discussion. We've learned a lot. 2017.